Okay, so this is a final video for today's session. We'll expand upon this later on. But where we're going now is we're going to bring this a little bit closer to a finished application again. And I'll just show you how it's working, how it should work at the end. Close these down. I've turned off the autoplay currently, but you could always return that back on. So playing a video, and if I double click, put a post-it there, maybe go a bit further on and put another one there, and another one here. Oops, maybe there as well. Okay, what we've got now is we've got light boxes that appear and disappear based on a click, but equally, if I click on a button created, it will take me to a specific point in the video now, the point where we were, and it will make as returns wherever we were. There is also one other little difference. Essentially, if you've got a post-its expanded, then there'll be light boxes, multiple light boxes on the screen. And to show this, I'm just going to put another one in. And what happens then is we have two light boxes open, but if I click on this button to go back to the first one, you'll notice that the second one has disappeared. Because we were adding in a variable to make the current or the most recent lightbox ID be stored. And that's just for that kind of issue there. But if we have post-its collapsed or expanded, then it will change the visibility of the corresponding lightbox. Okay, so into the code. We have got a variable time and I, which was set quite early on. I've added that in again. Don't actually need to declare it again. It already exists. But we have added the variable last lightbox. It's not got a value. It just needs to exist. By declaring it outside of a function, it's got what's known as global scope, and so it can be accessed by any function within the document. If I was to declare it within a single function, then it would only be accessible by that function and its children, so if there were functions declared within it. And that's a little bit about variable scope. Okay, so we've got get mouse location, it's already running, log time already running, create new post-it is essentially already running, with the exception of we're now adding in some other specific information. So it's probably worth noting that I've moved or changed the mouse location, which is positioning the light boxes, by creating variable x and y, setting up those values, and then adding it in the following way. So just x, y. So essentially, we're separating out the manipulation of the variable, and then just putting the value straight in when it's required. But that doesn't really change anything. It's just about tidying up the code a little bit. We've then also added in a button. So in a similar way that we added in new lightbox earlier on, we are also going to now add in a new button. The button, I've set all of the properties a little bit lower down. So I've given it a little bit of margin to the right. Perhaps 30 pixels is a little bit too much, maybe 10 pixels is enough. I've set the attribute type button. This means the browser will make sure that it's a clickable button and it responds the way that we would like it to. I've added in an event listener to submit, which is one of the events that we can listen for when working with buttons. The others are things like click, double click, and call in a function called goToPostTime, which will be declared in a little bit. I've added in text content, so by taking away some information that we'd already used earlier on and adding it to this new button, the time now appears inside of the button. I'm also adding a custom property called time to new button, which means any time that we use the button, we can access the time that was at that creation point. So whenever the button's created, it records the time, and that is how we can reference the point in the video readily. We've also made the light boxes a little bit bigger, 50 pixels instead of 30 pixels. That's pretty much it for the function, except for tidying up the window bar text content, because now I'm just going to have the mouse X and Y at the moment. We do have to append the button. I'm just trying to find out where I've done that. There we go. So I've appended it to the inner post. So it's the first thing that happens in the inner post because of where I've positioned it. Actually, strictly speaking, I think what I'll do is move that to underneath where we've created the button, so it's closer to. So inner post is going to have the new button added to it. Also did a little bit with the new title, where I've given it a percentage width of 80%. I've set its display to inline block, and what that does is H2, the element we're using for new title, and we can tell that by looking where we create it here, new title H2. H2 is a block level element. What that means is it's always going to have a certain amount of margin around the outside of it, and it will always have a line return. So if you put a H2 element in, it will drop down a line. It will have quite a big margin above and below, and it will have a certain amount of margin and padding to the left and to the right of it. By choosing the display of inline block, I'm suppressing that, and then it will appear alongside the button, which is what I wanted to do so that the spacing looks a little bit more normal. I have allowed it a margin of 2 pixels at the top, just so there's some space and it's not very, very cluttered. And then what we're going to do is create the event listener. So when the button is clicked, we go to post time, which is defined a little bit further down the page. Yeah. Oops, and there we go. So just before the end of the script, I'm checking the target.time property, which we added when we created the button, or button.time. New button.time was adding that property. We're then going to send that to the player using player.currentTime, which allows us to get or set the current time of the video. So in this case, we're using it to set the time, which is how we get returned to that point. Although if it's playing, it will continue to play. So I'm then telling it to pause. And using the variable last light box, we are also telling the last light box to disappear, whichever one's recorded. And then if we just test that now again, in the video, putting the light box in, put a few more in maybe here. It'll be quite quick. And then I will just go back to the first one, just pause to that point, go back to the last one. And any window, any post-it that's open should have a light box visible. So if I open this one and this one scroll down and open another one, and you see 3 of them appearing. And we can make the other ones disappear, but it takes a little bit of logic, and that can be your extension challenge if you get to that point.